Hi everyone, welcome to the Art League Houston 2020 Summer Exhibition. I'm Sophia Malik, the studio assistant for this program and also a host for tonight. Let me introduce you to the other hosts, Ava, Elise, Juno, and Ire. Hi guys.
Hi, so I'm Ava, and I'm also one of the mentors for this year's Teen Summer Intensive.
Hi, I'm Elise. I am 16 years old. I'm going to be a junior this year, and I'm one of the mentors.
Hi, I'm Ire Sojo. I attend HSPVA, and I'll be a senior in the fall.
Hi, I'm Juno Durkin. I'm 17. I'm one of the mentors at the Art League Houston program.
Thanks guys. If you're new here, you're probably wondering what this program is. The Summer Intensive program at Art League creates time and space for each summer for 16 talented teenage artists to explore new mediums, build their practices, and learn about art's ecosystem. Students have a hands-on workshop with professional artists, visit local art spaces, and talk with arts professionals, and have studio visits during open time used to create work for this exhibition. I'm going to pass it to Juno to talk about scholarships.
Yeah, the Art League Houston has been lucky enough to receive funding and full scholarships for all the students for 3 consecutive years. So any student can join no matter their financial means. We'd also like to thank the National Endowment for the Arts for 2 years of funding, the visiting artists and the spaces for giving us their time and letting us see their practices, and our friends and families for supporting us through this whole program. I'll pass it off to Elise to talk about the mural.
Thank you, Juno. This year, the 2020 cohort took part in making a mural at Surrey Arts this year, which is the second time that this has happened with Art League. The murals has been designed collaboratively through mentors and students, and this year will be executed by professional artists later in the fall, so please keep your eyes out open for any new information or details regarding that. Thank you. And I will pass it on to Ava to talk about how Art League Houston has adapted to the COVID situation.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously we're in a little bit of a different situation right now, which means we've had to adapt not only our exhibition, but our entire intensive program as well. Since I've been able to go through this program in person and virtually, the transition has been different but equally as enjoyable, at least for me. The entire program was moved to Zoom with online workshops and art visits all occurring virtually, and we were able to collect supplies once a week for our workshops, and virtual artist visits allowed us to visit spaces that we would normally not have had the time to physically drive to, for example, like the Galveston Art Center. Everyone had to adapt to the new format, but I think all of the participants and mentors were able to make the best of what we had. I'll pass it off to Ire to introduce our exhibition.
So now we'll move on to our virtual exhibition, A Dream Within a Dream, which is the collaborative result between the artists in this year's Summer Intensive. We all worked very hard together to brainstorm ideas and create a show that reflects each artist's individual voice. Through Dream Within a Dream, each artist explores their own take on the idea of perception. And so now let's hear about the artist's individual work, starting with Andrea Aguilar.
Hey, hi, my name's Andrea Aguilar. I'm gonna be a junior at the Woodlands High School and I'm 16. And my piece is called More Than One.
So your piece looks like it's a kind of almost like a collage. Can you talk a little bit more about like the medium and processes you use?
Yeah, so basically I didn't wanna, well, I came up with my idea like really far into the process. Like I didn't really sketch out anything either. I just kind of bought like a piece of fabric and started just kind of playing around with it. And I figured out that I wanted to do embroidery. Like that was something that I really liked over like the last month that we were like experimenting. And so I started doing embroidery. and my plan was to do like the whole face of embroidery and like even the hair. But like the one like at the beginning, like the neck took me like 2 weeks to do, and I was working like night and day, so I was just like there was no way I was gonna finish. So then I started incorporating more like acrylic, and like I decided that I would just kind of focus more on like half of the face so I could give it my like full attention. And then I did the flowers, and then obviously like after I did the hair.
All right. Well, that sounds like a lot of things are going on. So even though you kind of had this like setback in what you're expecting from the beginning, do you feel like the ability, like the adaptations that you made to finish this piece, do you feel like those changes really helped the piece? Or do you think if you could go back in time and start it earlier, you would go with your original idea?
My original idea was just to somehow use my piece as a blanket for some reason. I was like, that would be cool, like, but I do think that the flowers and like just using acrylic in general brought something else, because I feel like it wasn't really something that complicated. It was basically just like my face. So bringing in more like textures and things really did help it to stand out a little bit more. Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about how like in our workshops with the artists like influence your kind of choice. Do you think there was anything else from the program that kind of influenced your piece?
Yeah, so in like the program we talked about like being like zero waste and stuff, like kind of thinking about what you do and like what material you use. So for like the big sheet that I embroidered on, it was just like one of the scraps of like fabric we just had like laying around. And then like for the embroidery, I think it was a lot of, I have for some reason had a lot of embroidery, even though I was never really like into it before the program. But I just used that. I never really bought anything new, and that's why yeah, that's why I started using paint, because I wanted to like incorporate things that I already had. I didn't want to really like buy anything extra. I feel like that really like influenced a lot of the piece.
When you're thinking about zero waste as like an artist and your practice, you still are in high school. So it's not like you're like paying bills or anything. You still kind of have that reliable safety net since you're still a young artist. So why do you think it's really important to start getting used to those habits now, even as like you're beginning your practice, or you're already like still in the beginning of like what you can and grow into?
Yeah, so basically, I think in general, like the earlier you start, the better it is far along, because I feel like habits tend to get easier and to incorporate into a lifestyle the earlier you do them. Especially like that's why like little kids like they try to learn as everything like as much as they can, because their brain is like a sponge. Like it soaks up everything. So I feel like the zero waste like life would be really beneficial in general.
All right. Well, thank you for letting us know your thought process and everything. So that was Andrea Aguilar's piece, and I really enjoy it. It's something that I really love looking at, and especially in a room in the virtual studio, it's something that like immediately catches your eye. So definitely, if everyone has time after the live stream, feel free to really just take a long look at it. It's very fun and really entertaining. So
Yeah, her piece is definitely one of those pieces that developed more organically, like it wasn't planned out from the very beginning. Um, and so, yeah, so that's her piece. And then next we'll be hearing from Sharon.
Hi, my name is Sharon. I'm a rising senior and I'm 17. My piece is like a series called Monotone, and it's made up of 4 pieces. It's like Fog, Winnie, Last Reach, and Alive. but like one of the pieces is actually like in digital animation. And yeah.
So you worked with like kind of a variety of media throughout your series. Can you talk about like a little bit with your experience with like kind of each of those? Like were some of them new? Were some of them things that you'd done a lot before? Yeah, just like talk about that.
The traditional pieces, I mostly used acrylic, and it was like black and white acrylic. But for me, I guess acrylic is like newer because I started using acrylic in high school, like sophomore year. And like the pieces were pretty big to me, at least. So that was also something new. And the animation was done on Procreate on my iPad, which I got like 3 months ago. So that was also new.
Obviously, animation isn't something that is a really quick thing to do. It takes time and effort and a lot of patience. So, did you feel like a certain piece needed to be animation? And if so, what did the format and its medium bring to it? Like, bring to the piece? What meaning did it have along with it?
For me, since our like whole thing was like perception, I wanted like a series of like 4 like paintings in a series. But one of the paintings is like a fake painting where it's like a person, but it like looks still, but like occasionally she'd like move her eyes, and at one point she'd like glitch out completely. Like that was like my idea, so that one of them would be an animation. I was like from the beginning, that was my idea. But like since it moved virtual, I guess you couldn't really like project it onto a canvas like I originally thought. So like this is like kind of like a result of it becoming virtual. It's like what it looks like now.
Yeah, and at least when you first talked about that idea, I thought it was really cool. Can you talk a little bit more about like the inspiration for each of your pieces? Like you just talked about the animation, but like for the other three.
Okay, so Winnie is actually like one of my friends. So I don't know, I thought she was pretty, so I painted her. And then for Fog, it was more of like I really wanted to do like a landscape with like depth, and I like using the fog to like shroud out like fantastical castles and all that. And then for Last Reach, it was more of like an abstract kind of piece where like I kind of just like I was kind of hitting like a roadblock. So like for the hand, I kind of just like scribbled paint, and then I like used painter's tape to like do most of the layers, which is how I got like each of those like I don't know textures. So that's why like everything seems very like cut off. So that was like another like technique that was new for me, like using the painter's tape. And then yeah.
When you're doing something monochromatic, and especially if you're really used to working with color, going strictly to a like black to white scale can be very difficult for some artists. So having that change, if you weren't already used to it, did you feel like you adapted to it quickly? And if not, do you think that now with the knowledge that you've learned, if you were ever to create a piece similar to this, you'd be able to like go in a bit more confident?
Honestly, I feel like using black and white was actually a bit easier than using color, just because it's like there's not very many options. Like with color, you kind of have to like mix paints and shades. And it's very stressful. With like black and white, you kind of just like, oh, this part's darker than that part, so let me just color it in. But also, I really like the like black and white aesthetic because I am mostly like a sketch artist, I guess. So it's like liquid sketch for me, and I very much like the neutral tones.
Well, thank you for speaking about your work. It looks all very nice, and I am very, like, just looking at the pieces makes me very glad because I know, like, so much work was put into it, and you could see it in your work. So thank you.
I pulled like 2 all-nighters.
No, good. Well, you got done. So that was Sharon's work, and definitely I love her animation on that part. I wish I knew how to do animation, but definitely she's gone to the point where she could confidently do it, and I think that's something we could all aspire to.
Yeah, when we had a kind of time in our intensive where we kind of talked about our plans or like at least the plans we had at the time. And to be honest, when she said it to us, I like couldn't really imagine it. Like at that point, I feel like she didn't really have a complete grasp on what she wanted, but it's really nice to see that it all turned out really well. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I know that once we decided on transitioning to a virtual exhibition, definitely one of like her pieces were the harder ones to kind of put in a digital space, but at the end it was done really well, and I hope people can see it and definitely enjoy it to the fullest. So next for our interviews, we are listening to Madison over her work.
My name is Madison Gilbert. I'm 17, a 2020 graduate, and my piece is a sculpture named Watchful Eyes.
So your work is a 3D piece, which is very interesting. And can you explain the title and how you came up with the piece in general, please?
So with my title, Watchful Eyes, it basically just represents like people, like since on the sculpture the eyes are, it's not like there's like a certain direction that they're looking in. It kind of just it represents like people, not being aware of their surroundings and kind of paying more attention on stuff that's like materialistic and not like the beauty of the world and stuff like that, or like moments in time that like will never happen again, and they kind of like miss out on that. So I kind of wanted to integrate that in the piece, like with the eyes being blank.
Was your piece modeled after someone you know?
No, I just kind of went off of a sketch in a way. So I just sketched out like a person's face, and then I went off of that.
The sculpture is like a chalky white color. Can you explain what the medium is and how you came to use that medium?
Okay, so I use super sculpey clay. It's like an oven baked clay, and on the out, like the clay is actually like it's like a beige, like translucent kind of color. And so to give it that color that it is now, I used acrylic paint, and then I kind of made it look like as if it's like old stone. So that's how I got that look.
What was the process like working with this material?
I've used it before, but not like in this large of a size. So it's kind of difficult to like smooth stuff out. And also I kind of decided that it would be better if it kind of looked a little rough, so that it would go with the title and like the meaning behind it. But I think as I was creating the sculpture, it kind of got easier as I was going. So
Did you use any like foundation under the sculpture, like a wire skeleton, or did you just build it from the clay up?
no, I used aluminum foil for the armature.
Did you learn anything from this process?
Yeah, I would say I definitely learned something from it. Really, I guess I would say not make it like too thick, because on the face I kind of made it like thick, and it actually like created these like cracks in it, but it actually turned out to be pretty cool because it kind of like showed a sense of age in the sculpture. So I'm actually kind of in a way glad that it happened, because it kind of like added more dimension to the piece.
Thank you.
Okay,
Sounds
that
good.
was really good.
Yeah.
I really like your piece.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
It
you.
looks really good. Yeah.
What a great piece. The craftsmanship and the fact that she was able to create such a compelling image from a 3D medium is very impressive.
Yeah, I love Madison's piece. It's so beautifully made and it's just very expressive. I really enjoy it. Up next for interviews, we have Celine.
My name is Celine Huang. I am a 16-year-old rising junior at St. John's School. My series is called The Faces of Janice, with the pieces Melancholy of the Past and Hope of the Future.
Is this a medium that you usually work in?
Yeah, I typically use acrylic, and this is what I used in these pieces. But a new thing that I experimented with was laying newspaper down and using like gesso on top of it to prep the canvas. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Where did you have the idea to put newspaper on the piece?
Well, to be honest, there's my house has a lot of newspaper since my dad reads a lot of it, and I just looked around the house to see anything that would be interesting to integrate. I like the idea of like integrating text and kind of that texture of yeah the newspaper, and just overlaying it with some kind of just like mixed medium gives it an interesting feel, I think.
What drew you to the imagery that you chose?
I think I liked, for a long time, I really liked the concepts of like very just water and the sky, clouds, and some flowers, I guess. And so in each of the pieces, you can see that I've integrated some of those elements in it. And I think that considering like the topic that I was trying to convey, it gave a little bit more of an abstract feel, but in combination with like the actual portraiture.
Could you talk more about the specific topic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if in case you don't know who Janus is the two-faced Greek god of, or not Greek, Roman god of gates and like transitions. And since we're in a period of great change at this time, I thought that by doing these two portraits, one of the past and one of the future, it kind of depicts the way that we look at things, of the kind of dangers of getting lost in the past, but of like being kind of blinded. And that if you see in the piece, there's like a sunken ship, and just kind of that feeling of sadness and drowning. Whereas if you look into the future and strive towards change, there's a feeling of freedom. But the piece of the future is the person's a little farther away and a little more unattainable.
A really cool movement to it. Do you usually use nature and imagery to symbolize concepts in your pieces?
I think so. I think that especially I do a lot of just like sketches of faces and just people, I guess, but I really like just the movement and the flow of layering on top some maybe not so like realistic elements of like things that people normally wouldn't be seen in. And yeah, nature is included in that, or nature of, I guess, the deep sea and the high skies.
Your favorite thing about these two paintings?
I think the favorite thing about these two paintings, or for me, is the kind of flow of the pieces and how they connect. So, yeah.
I really love Celine's pieces because she ties in what's going on in current events with such an old thing like Roman mythology. She did a really good job, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. The movement she captures in her pieces is wonderful. And yeah, just great works. Next, we have Amber.
Amber was unable to join for a Zoom call to make an interview, so those were her works. So after the live, if you could go and read what she's written about her works, that would mean a lot, and it would be very kind of you to do so. So after Amber, we are going to listen to Andrea about what her piece was and her creative process.
My name is Andrea. I'm 16. I'm going to be a junior at Clear Horizons Early College High School. And my piece is named Fantastic View.
Tell us a little bit about your piece. Like, what medium did you use? What was your inspiration?
I used acrylics, but for the 3D part of my painting, the dragon, I actually had a whole process to make it. It took quite a while. I first used cardboard to make kind of like the skeleton of the dragon, and then I paper mache to make the shape of it. And on top of that, I used Sculptamold to make the outside of it, and I sanded it down and I painted over it. Yeah.
When did it take you to do like the whole dragon thing, the 3D element?
The 3D element took way longer than it took to paint. Way longer. I felt like I was working on that for ages. I honestly don't remember like how long it took in total to make, but I was working on the 3D part for a while.
What made you want to make a dragon?
So the idea behind my piece is that well, as an artist, I think I see the world differently or perceive the world differently because I like to think of the world as more of a magical place, I guess. Like I like fantasy and like things that are not of this world. I think it's like just personally, I like to imagine things that are cooler than they are in real life, like a dragon, for example.
Do you usually work with like fantasy subjects to like show the theme that you wanted, like fantasy in real life type of theme?
I guess, yeah. Most of my work is really like fantasy. I don't really draw from life much. I guess I should be like realistic ideas, but I really like fantasy things like elves and magic, and yeah.
What was the most fun part about this piece?
The most fun part, I want to say the 3D part, but not gonna lie, it was very tedious. It went on longer than I thought, but I did think I enjoyed it. You know, it was like a steady pace of work, and like there's something nice about doing the same thing over and over, which was me like paper macheing my dragon.
Why 3D?
Why 3D? I really want to try something new. I haven't really done, well, actually, I don't paint much either. I consider myself more of a beginner artist than the rest of the artists here. I feel like I don't have as much experience as the other artists here. So I guess I really want to try to, like, show what I could do besides my limited experience. So I haven't done like painting much or 3D much, and I really want to try it out.
That's great.
Okay,
Yeah,
everyone, oh, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think that Andrea's pieces turned out very well, and that, yeah, they're just really good.
And if you are watching this, you are not less than. You're a very talented artist. So with that, we are going to be taking a break from interviews to walk around the gallery. Just some information. The show is up from August 8th to the 29th, and if you miss the show from any time between then, the stream will be available on the Art League Houston website after tonight. If you're also interested in the program, the summer intensive program application period opens March of 2021. Also, I want to kind of touch on mentors. I've been with Art League in this program for 3 years, and last year I was a mentor. I feel like being a mentor taught me a lot about leadership and taking initiative with the artistic process, that I think allowed me to lead as a studio assistant this year. How about you guys? What are your experiences being a mentor this year?
I can go first. Um, so I think, yeah, last year I was part of the program just as a normal student, and this is my second year with the program. So I'm here this year as a mentor. And I think it was definitely, I mean, as we had to adjust a lot as well this year with the whole format being changed. We definitely didn't really know what to expect because it was not going to be the same as last year. But I think being a mentor and having to like kind of step up and take that initiative to like get other people to, talk to each other and not just stare at each other over Zoom, was definitely nice. Like it helps me like, start that conversation. And I think even though we weren't in person, the mentors and the participants as well were able to lead a lot of good conversation, even if it wasn't in person.
I could go next. So, last year was my first year with Art League, and this year I applied to be a mentor, and I did get the position. And the main reason I kind of decided to come back to Art League was that the program that they have for teens, the summer intensive, is a very like important program that I feel like not a lot of people have access to in different areas, because normally whenever I hear of a summer program, it's just a camp where you just sit around and just do individual art pieces the entire time. But with Art League, it's such a more interactive experience, and you get to kind of know the Houston scene in like the art scene in Houston. Before, I didn't really know art had such a big life in Houston, but through Art League I was able to kind of learn that there's different ways to live and make money in the arts and have a living for yourself and pursue what you like in Houston, despite if you decide to not go for a traditional studio practice. So I feel like as going back as a mentor, being able to help other people understand that was something very important to me. So of course, Art League holds a very important place in my heart, and I hope that as being a mentor, I was able to let other people share that.
So I was a student 2 years ago. I was a student at the same time that Sophia was, and at that point in the program, the mentor program wasn't a thing. We didn't have mentors. It was just students and the studio assistant. So I applied to be a mentor this year because I thought it would be an interesting opportunity. And I think having mentors in the program really helps it. It guides the students a bit more, and it gives them someone to like their age, I guess. But I'm kind of glad that I did the mentor program because it gave me like a leadership opportunity, I guess, and it's very good experience, like real life experience for young artists. The program in general is really good for younger artists because I don't think before I'd ever met like a real working artist who can make a living off of art. So seeing that so young in my art journey has been really good.
Eva, you're muted.
Your mic's off. Oh, you're
Ira, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
I think she might just be having microphone issues. Yeah, but I'll just kind of fill in for her while she gets that sorted out. I definitely agree with Elise and Juno in saying that the program is really helpful for young artists, just because, like Juno's saying, you don't really get a chance to meet people who are actually like living off of their art. You know, everyone kind of talks about being an artist a lot of the times negatively, like in that like you can't really have financial stability, and being able to like meet a bunch of people who have chosen this career path and like are doing well for themselves. It's definitely really inspiring. And I think it just exposes you to a lot of things that you're not exposed to in like a normal classroom setting. Like maybe if you go to like HSPVA, but like definitely at Bel Air, you know, the art community is kind of like small and very limited, and there's not that many like um, physical like human resources. Like there's not that many people to talk to. So I think this is definitely like that's one of the things that Art League has to offer. Yeah.
As we wait for E-Ray's technical issues to be sorted out, we can jump back into interviews and we can learn some more about other works that are in the exhibition and the artists behind them.
So up next.
My name is Simona Pastor. I'm 15 years old. I'm currently a 10th grader. For this exhibition, my artwork is titled Dream, and it's about how dreaming of better things or happier times in a rough situation that we're currently experiencing within ourselves or around the world will make us feel better in the long run. Masking reality sometimes has its benefits, and having a positive mindset of better times or better futures will make us feel better. My artwork is a watercolor painting featuring me as the self-portrait in it, surrounded by these beautiful plants and animals as a representation of happier times. It was done in watercolor mainly, some watercolor pencils, and gold leaf as the background.
I really liked Simona's use of gold leaf. It's not a medium that you really see very often. And she used quite a lot of it, which is really impressive because I've used it before and it's really difficult to adhere to the paper properly. So it shows a lot of skill that she was able to do it like well. Next for the interviews is Bella.
My name is Isabella Paz. I'm 16 and I'm in 10th grade right now. The piece that I have is a sculpture and the name of it is Fairy Mouse House.
All right. So since this is a very 3D piece, is this something you're very comfortable working with, or was this a very experimental first step?
I was very comfortable with it a little bit, but there were just parts that I was a little uneasy with because it was different than I'm used to. You know, I had to step away from having that step-by-step and having someone that knows what's going on, like from like a little art class that I used to do back in middle school, you know, and just like something that was completely new and different, but it was also very exciting. So I can, yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot. I think a lot of people like try new stuff, like use this exhibition to try new things, which is really cool. So you said your piece was titled Grandma's House, if I heard that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Do you want to explain a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah. So I put it in like a little description of everything. So I came up with the idea because while I was working with it, I had the help of my grandmother and my mother, who would, just try to support me any way they could, take me to the store to get supplies, try to help me cut out things while I'm painting something else. And, while we made it, they were just like looking at it and just asking me so many questions, like, what are you doing? What's going on? And but like, they were like having so many ideas as well as mine. Cause just like, oh, this room could be like that, and this could be a room like that, and blah, blah, blah. And then my mom came to the point asking me, what is this about? And I really wanted this sculpture to feed off the creativity to others. Like, I wanted this to inspire people, because I wanted everybody or anyone to just look at it and wonder what it is, and to make it their own thing and help that inspire them to think about some other things. And for grandma's house, whenever I went to my grandmother's house, I never left empty. I never left with an empty stomach. There you go. I never left with an empty stomach. And so I just wanted people to look at it and never leave without being fulfilled with imagination or creativity. So I just wanted to give that back off.
Right. Well, that's a very interesting idea and exploration of how you got this very universal experience, and you've translated it in a really different and interesting way. So from this very idea of family that you turn, does the idea of family often pop up in your works, or do you feel like the help that you had with your grandmother and your mother working really helped bring it out for this piece?
Oh yeah, I mean, family's everything to me, and there is a lot of thought and process with what I do, because I've never had anyone other than my family that, they're always there for you. So they're just a really big part of who I am. And so with my work, I usually put into part of them with it, and how they shaped me into a better person that I am today. And yes, I would say that because of their help, that helped me sculpt it in a way that was like a part of them, something that we all share in common.
Well, thank you very much for sharing. I really loved hearing about how you came up with this piece, and I look very forward to reading more about it in your description and seeing it in the showcase. So thank you again. All right. So that was Bella's piece. It's something that I actually didn't see a common theme of this year. Normally we get a good amount of people doing pieces about family, but her piece, I definitely felt like a very strong connection to it, especially because growing up I was very connected to my own family and my own grandma, and I guess the way she described her grandma was very similar to mine. So I felt a personal connection to that interview, and I really enjoyed her piece and how it ended up looking.
Yeah, I think it turned out really well, and especially since that's that's also something, as I was saying in the interview, that a lot of people use this chance to kind of explore new stuff. I think she really took advantage of that as well, and it turned out well for her. So up next, we have Chloe, and Chloe also was unable to do an interview, so we'll just have images of her work. I guess I'll. Personally, I was really excited to see what Chloe came up with, because when we were in the process of putting this all together, she had been kind of silent about what was happening, but her pieces turned out really well, and she did briefly mention to us that this was it was like a more personal subject matter to her. Um, so I think that was also something that was impressed by, like her bravery and kind of putting that out there. But if you guys would read the description of her work, then I think she'd really appreciate that too.
So, from what I know, the pieces that she made were acrylic with photo transfer in them, and I think a bit of thread. Correct. I do not know for sure, but um, definitely it's like Ava was saying. Chloe did describe it as a very personal subject matter, so I wish she could be the one explaining it rather than I. But to the best of my ability, I believe that her subject matter was about how she viewed herself and body image and body confidence. So I feel like that's such a really interesting and strong topic that many people kind of go through. So again, it's very beautiful. It's really well put together. When I first saw it, I was shocked about like how pretty it was, and I really loved the craftsmanship in it. So
Yeah, up next, I think we have Christiana for interviews.
Hi everyone, my name is Christiana Williams. I am 17 years old and going into my senior year of high school. This summer I was able to participate in the Art League's intensive for high school students and have been lucky enough to be able to showcase my work in this year's exhibition. The exhibition in itself is about each artist's interpretation of dreams and perception. Mine particularly talks about feelings and how they can often change our perception of the world. As humans, we often have strong emotions that our mind cannot fully comprehend. These feelings can overwhelm us and change what we see and how we see things. Throughout my piece, I use different elements to symbolize different things. The woman's eyes are black and white intentionally to show the desaturation of thought and as well as unaltered perception. The colors draining down to the heart and to the flowers represent the overwhelming feelings we have and them just being abundant. The frayed fabric heart represents emotions coming in and as well as going out. I really enjoyed creating this piece. It really pushed me artistically, and I've tried many mediums that I do not normally use. So I enjoyed it, and I really hope that you guys too.
Yeah, that was a beautiful. Check out the pieces in the galleries to, you know, see them closely and to see all the details. Yeah. Up next, we have Vivian.
This is Vivian. I'm 17 and I'm going to be a senior at the village high school. I have two pieces, tapestry and old man.
Okay, both of your pieces are like starkly contrasted with each other. They're very different. Can you explain why you did that, if there was a reason?
It's just they're completely unrelated. But the concepts I wanted to explore were tradition and culture and the relationship with humans. And then with Old Men, the relationship between humans and time.
Can you talk about your process for the pieces and if they tied in to your initial idea?
So originally my idea for the tapestry was to show or symbolize the stomping on traditions and culture, literally by stepping on it to show how the modern environment kind of overthrows or overshadows culture. And I did some research on Chinese ink paintings and I tried to express that through my piece. And for my old man color pencil art piece, I had some experience in color pencil, but this was my first time doing realism.
I had no idea it was your first time with realism. That's really impressive. But the tapestry piece is really big. Do you usually work in such a large scale?
No, I usually work in digital art, so this is my first time working on an art piece that was literally taller than me.
What was the most fun part about these pieces?
I think just learning and experiencing new mediums and art styles, because I'm excited to explore these again in future pieces.
In what way do you see yourself continuing that idea?
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, in what way do you see yourself continuing that idea?
Well, I'm interested in Chinese culture a lot, so I'm definitely going to explore Chinese ink painting again. As for color pencil, I think it's a very good way to capture just color and realism, or just anything basically. So practicing my skills in color pencil is definitely going to be worthwhile.
Yeah, these pieces turned out really good. I'm curious about the landscape. Did you conjure that from your mind, or was there, did you use multiple reference photos, or how did you go about making the landscape?
So before I even began designing it, I looked at other famous Chinese art pieces that are mainly vertically composed. So I just took my knowledge of those and applied them to mine. But it is just conjured up from my mind.
Do you think you'll do pieces like this again? Like pieces of the size of the same subject matter?
I'm not exactly sure about that, because perception is a really broad topic. And while I am going to explore this again in the future, I'm not sure if it's going to be specifically the ones that I chose for these pieces.
Has fabric been something that you've worked with in the past?
No.
So that is the end of our artist interview. So thank you to all the artists, if you are watching, for speaking about your art. It's definitely not the best and funnest thing to do, but it's something that eventually we have to get used to. And thank you to everyone who is watching that listened intently and really appreciated and showed their appreciation in the comments. We can read them and we are very thankful for you. So along with solo projects, the cohort also worked collaboratively through digital calls like Zoom and online save files to work on one mural design and collaboratively work on it. So last year, we introduced the idea of making a mural at Sawyer Yards, and the artists themselves painted it. But however, due to the COVID situation, it was planned, and we all put it together online, and it will be painted on the Sawyer Yards wall by professional artists in the fall. So it was very fun and interesting.
Able to paint this in person.
So that was the time lapse of last year's mural. So definitely. I know Sophia, Ava, and Ire were there to paint that mural, but this was actually Juno's first year in working on a mural for Houston and the art funding and the arts in Houston. So I would like to kind of ask Juno like what her experience was putting that together.
Yeah. When I was a student in the program, we didn't have mentors and we didn't have the mural, which are two of like some of the best things in the program. I still enjoyed it, but like everyone else got to have a bit extra. But it was really weird working on a mural, especially online. Having to like it's quite difficult to have a group conversation in Zoom because lots of people like to mute themselves and things. But we worked through it and it worked out really well. And the students were really, 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 really good at it. We had a lot of really good ideas. Yeah, it was weird, but it was fun. And I'm glad we did it. And it's opening in the fall, or it's going to be painted in the fall because of COVID and the heat.
I can, yeah, like Elise was saying, Sophia, Yuri, Elise, and I all were able to physically paint the mural last year. And I never thought I'd say this, but I kind of like miss being out in the sun, even though I like burned to death in the middle of June. But I think, yeah, like Juno was saying, it was definitely a different experience having to put that all together because you can't really draw on the same paper at the same time. Like one of our participants, Celine, was pulling a lot of heavy weight, doing a lot of the digital rendering because like we have things like Google Docs where we can type on the same document, but there's not many where you can like draw at the same time. So she was having to do a lot of that rendering on her own, and that was really nice of her to take that up. But I think it's definitely interesting because we had a lot of, especially with the four of us doing this before, we had a lot of new ideas on how to improve the mural and how we could kind of really push our limit, um, considering we have that experience from last year. So I think even though that did make it a little more difficult, I think we got a more like we got like a very like satisfying result. So I was happy about it.
Yeah, I definitely, I definitely, I definitely agree with Ava. Um, it was a very fun process, but at the same time, the changes that were made for the mural, we were all able to work well together to create that final product. And yeah, thank you so much, Celine, for drawing it out. And yeah, it all worked out in the end.
I feel like everybody's ideas this year meshed really well compared to last year's. Um, both of them were still cohesive, but I feel like this one not only literally but figuratively meshes together very well.
Oh wait, there's at least one. I'll speak really quickly and then I'll let Elise go. One thing I did want to add is that our subject matter is really different this year. Last year it was kind of assigned to us by the story yards people, so we kind of had to do our own research and follow along with the topic that they had chosen. But this year we got definitely a lot more freedom, but with more freedom was like more responsibility, and we had different, I feel like different issues from last year, but we were still able to kind of work through it. So that was nice.
Yes, I definitely agree. So, of course, I really love how the mural came out this year. It is going to be on top of last year's mural. So, if you are aware where Sawyer Yards is and you have visited last year's mural, it's going to be in the same place. So, feel free to keep in touch with Art League on social media to get any more updates on it, and then you could see how it looks like in the end. So, with our mural talk and individual projects, the one of the last things we have to touch up on are our individual pieces that are also in the show. So, of course, does anyone want to start their conversation about what they created and how it went about?
Yeah, I think I'm up first. So I did two pieces. I think she's going to show them on the screen. Yes. So this is one of them. I titled it Staircase Aquarium. And then the second one was, I just titled it Cloud Ceiling. Since our theme this year was kind of like perception, and we had been stuck in quarantine for like 2 months at that point, I was seeing a lot of the same scenery every day, my room, my house, that I wasn't leaving very often, if at all. And so I decided to kind of take this idea of perception and like, take the mundane like bedroom ceiling and like, just have fun and do stuff on top of it. And so I worked on a stretch canvas like 16 by 20, and then I also went out and bought like an acetate sheet and I cut that to size. So that layer on top with like the clouds or the water and stuff is on the acetate, and that's in like paint marker. And then the bottom is a acrylic painting.
Okay, I guess. So whenever you painted it, you did the under like painting, if that makes sense, like really dull colors, and then the acetate sheet on top of it were like very bright colors, and you look at it and you're like, if that makes sense. I don't so was there like a way that you were like, oh, like did this concept of having these two different colors come to you naturally, or was it like later into the process you're like, oh, I could contrast these two and it'll look really cute and nice?
Yeah, so initially I had actually planned on doing more paintings, but smaller. But then I decided against, well, like I changed my mind later on. And I always had the idea that I wanted to make the colors a little different, just to kind of show the cohesiveness of like all these places being in my house. But also like, when you see the same thing over and over again, like it can start to lose like that kind of sense of like newness or like, so I kind of wanted to show that through like the muted colors. There was a lot of like dulled down grays and stuff like that. So, and then on top of that, I was using very like vibrant, you know, paint markers. So yeah, I did consider the contrast when I was like coming up with the idea. Oh, we have a visitor. Okay, no more questions? Then we can move on to someone else. I think we'll have Elise talk about her work.
I have a quick question.
Erie has something. Yeah.
What was like the best part about the process in this piece?
I think the best part for me was that I hadn't done a lot of large pieces recently, since like I had just come out of like finishing an AP drawing course, so I was definitely very tired out by that. And then so I had just been sticking to a lot of like little sketches and like smaller studies, but I hadn't really been like working on a larger scale. And I think that was part of what made me change to a larger canvas size. So like that type of like the satisfaction of kind of completing like a larger project, I think that was one of the most like fulfilling things.
They turned out really well.
Thank you. All right, I think we'll have Elise talk about her stuff.
All right, thank you, Ava. So for this year, for the summer intensive, I put together a small zine that is 29 pages long, and every single page was made by me, despite how long it took and how annoyed I got with it. So basically, the theme of this zine was kind of an ode to time, if that makes sense. It was it was a product of the situation everyone is in right now. Being in my house all the time with quarantine, it's so tiring. So having myself be stuck in the house and reflecting on the person I am and my friends and what I miss and things I wish I could go back to became a very big part and the first thing that kind of started putting this together. So as I was putting it together, one of the big underlying themes was the concept of relationships and how we would see them. So some of them are with myself and my relationship with art, and myself with my relationship with myself, and the fact that I'm getting older and I won't be a child for much longer. So that, and then my friends that I care about very, very much. So normally I'm a very traditional artist. I really just stick with drawing, painting, the occasional digital art. But for this, it was so much more experimental for me. It has writing, it has poetry I made at 1 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. It has collages I did with old magazines I found on the floor, and photography that I made on my phone in a really dark room, and photos that I just found somewhere in my house, and I just managed to put it all together in one piece. So definitely this was something very new for me. Um, of course, there's always going to be more to add and more to do. So I very much look forward to any future zines I make and what will be in them. So quick reminder that these zines are going to be for sale. Art League has been kind enough to host the website for where you could see the spreads that you just saw right now, and then also a portal for buying them and shipping them to your lovely, lovely arms by the end of August and the beginning of September. So each book is hand-bound by me and will be packaged by myself as well. So
Really great work. Do you have any ideas about future zines right now?
like I feel like I'm kind of meant to do that just the day I finished working on putting it all together, because in reality, I started making some of the things that are in there in like early March. So I guess since I'm always creating something, I always have something to add into the next one. I know the day I finished, I was like, I'm never going to work on a zine again. I'm so mentally tired and drained. And that later that night, I was writing something else for the next one. So I don't really know the direction it's going to go, but if I'm going to be alive and kicking and doing something, then I guess there's always content to make for another zine.
I can tell you like really love the zine. You put so much work into it and it really shows. It's really beautiful. How much is the zine going to be?
Well, first, thank you for saying that. It means a lot to me that you could look at it and be like, oh, this put effort into it, because I very much did. Each zine is $10. And that is not with shipping. If you do buy through Art League, it will be a $10 minimum, and then shipping will be based where you live. It is not strictly limited to the US. You can go overseas like in Canada, but of course shipping rates will apply. But hopefully, if you do decide to support me and my work, the zine will feel like a little hug or a little letter from a friend. That's all I really want from whoever reads it.
I was really excited when I found out you were doing a zine because I love your art and I think it just meshed so well with zines. So I was really excited about that.
Yeah. Also agreeing with Sophia, like on your Instagram and stuff like that, it's a lot of like more sketch work, but it's all very cohesive and it's all very much like your thoughts and your ideas. So I think the zine was like a perfect way of putting it all together. And she's hand sewing them and binding them. So $10 in my opinion is a little bit of a steal. But yeah, I really liked it.
Thank you all very much for saying very kind words and for your plug, Ava. Ava helped me with the math for figuring out everything, so I have to hand it to her for helping me out. So next I'm going to throw it on over to Juno and what she created over this month. So take it away.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a triptych. I've always, or at least for the past 3 years, I've been kind of obsessed with religious art for some reason, like especially Catholic religious art. I love the halos, I love the gold leaf, I love the triptychs. That really has nothing to do with the meaning. I just really like the theme of religious formatting, but the piece is actually to do with perception, like the theme of the show. I struggle with anxiety, so I thought that changing around the perception of my own fears into something childlike and whimsical would kind of make it seem less scary to myself. I kind of simpled down the fears into fairy tale creatures like bears and tigers and put it at night, which is something that kids are always afraid of. So yeah, it's really about fear and how we see it and how we can change how we see it through the right lens. Questions?
It's very charming.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love the whimsical quality about it. I guess, how's the process of figuring out making it into a triptych and having it move and having that 3D element as well as the 2D elements within it?
Yeah, my dad helped me with it because I'm basically used to building stuff like that. I had to get a hard board, which is like a masonite board, and I split it in half, and I had to like cut it with an X-Acto knife so the edges aren't exactly perfect. And putting it together was a challenge because I put the hinges on wrong, and I had to glue them on because I didn't want to pierce the piece. So I plan to make more triptychs in the future. So next time I'm going to be a bit more careful in its construction.
Right. I know from just between the mentors and other students that you had a little issue with paint getting on the project for a little bit. So, like, how did you kind of jump back to like the groove into making this piece and finishing it and being satisfied?
Yeah, so the middle panel is actually the second try of that panel. The first one I didn't like, so I was using it as a reference for the second one, and this was about 3 days before it was due, and I was using it, and it was too late, so I was going to use it in the final fit piece anyway, but it just fell onto my palette, and it got completely ruined, so I had to use a fast-drying medium that has toxic chemicals in it, and rush the piece in about 2 days. But it worked out fine, so it's okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm the last one to talk. But like I'm in another program with Juno, and I've always noticed that her artwork is very like with kind of going along this like kind of whimsical style. Like her style of painting and rendering is very like illustrative, and I think this is also one of those things like that like really highlights like the format really highlights your own style. Um, yeah, so I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I think Ira is due to go next to talk about her piece.
Yeah, so for my piece, in terms of perception, I worked on analyzing how we perceive other people. And so I played off that idea of how, depending on what you look like or maybe what you're wearing, we as a society perceive those individuals differently. And I also played around with the idea of how, with that perception, the space that those people navigate becomes different because they know about how they're perceived. And so with this, I had this hoodie, like this Ben's hoodie, and on the front of it, I embroidered a bunch of flowers, forget-me-nots, to symbolize remembrance and perseverance. And on the back, I wrote the words suspicious to kind of comment on the fact that like that word is often used to label certain people who like are perceived like negatively, but the word suspicious itself is very vague when it's used as a label, because what's suspicious about the person really changes depending on who is, I guess, labeling the individual. And so with that, I took these photos. I had uh, my mom model these photos with this hoodie on to kind of like talk about that idea of like perception and navigating space with that.
I'll go first. I really like when you kind of talked about the piece. I know originally you had wanted, I think, your dad to model it. But I think I mean, especially with what has been happening and what is still happening, it's a really powerful piece. And, you know, it definitely kind of like, I think it's just like the meaning and like the intentions are like very well expressed, and you can really see kind of all the thought that you put into it, even to like the details of like forget me nots and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I think it was really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, the flowers are like really amazingly done. How long did it take you to do all of them?
It took a while. I think there was a point, like at first I was like, oh, I'll just do like a small amount of them, and then I kind of just kept going, and so I think there were over 40 of them, and I think it varied how like small or big I made it, but I guess like between 30 minutes to like an hour and 30 minutes, it really varied
Yeah.
for like each flower.
When you're creating like a piece that has like so many small details, like the flowers, um, how you were saying that like each flower took you a while, were there any like times in the process where you're like, can I do less flowers, or were you determined like in what your vision was and you were going to just persevere into what you originally planned, or did you have to like make any changes?
Um, so I guess when it came with the flowers, that I didn't have like a number for them. I kind of had like a shape that I wanted to like for to have. I had a shape I had in mind that I wanted them to kind of create like I guess like a flow. And I think I just would like look at the piece and be like, oh, I should put a flower here. Oh, I should put a flower there. And um, and I guess I kind of just persevered through it. And at times, like the act of it could be pretty fun. But yeah, I think certain parts of the piece had to change due to like the whole like virtual and COVID situation. But I think that it worked out in the end.
How did you decide what font to use for suspicious?
So I went onto Photoshop and I kind of like messed around with like a bunch of different fonts, and I can't remember the name of the font, but uh, I had I used the font for kind of like the basic like for I guess the basic structure, and then from there I kind of just like freehand and like added little details to kind of I guess create my own font.
And I guess that means I'm going next. So
hello, I'm Sophia Malik. I'm 18 years old and I'm this year's studio assistant for the Summer Teen Intensive program. My favorite mediums to work with are watercolor and collage, But for my piece, Deconstruction of Childhood, I wanted to focus on something different: textiles and found object sculpture. Everything that you see in the piece Deconstruction of Childhood is something that I already had or something that I found secondhand. Not only did using secondhand items add to the sentimental value of childhood, but it also reduced the amount of waste that I used. I do have quite a lot of textile scraps, but as you can see in my piece, I utilized those as well. This piece represents my perspective of my childhood shifting over time and the longing for the warmth that my childhood had brought me. I personally describe this piece as a memorial to my childhood or inner child. As you grow up, you often see people differently than you did when you were a child. You start to see their flaws. That's why I wanted to portray my piece in a dreamy atmosphere, to represent the perfect perspective that you have as a child. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy my piece.
Okay. I want to talk about this piece a little bit more because I feel like that video does not represent what I wanted the piece to really be about at the time. I didn't have my thoughts fully realized. So I felt that in the video I had a tone that like my childhood had there was negative connotations in my childhood, but I wanted to I wanted this to be a memorial to my childhood in a sense that I'm bringing my inner child with me as I grow older rather than killing it off. I think that as you get older, you often forget that your inner child is worthy of your time and your patience and love. And I have personally struggled with that, forgetting how to treat myself. And I feel like by honoring this piece, honoring my inner child with this piece, she would be proud of me. That's it.
Thank you for this piece. It's really nice, and I think the meaning behind it is just, yeah, it's really good. I think that what you were talking about is really important to kind of just acknowledge that part. And I feel like the colors as well as like the way you assembled the pieces really like talk and like, talk about that.
I definitely really like enjoy looking at your piece too. Like there's something about the colors and like the textiles that you use that all feel very familiar, even though like they weren't my things. Like looking at it, I felt like, wow, this is what I had when I was a child. So you really kind of explored and used this experience like universal experience of what childhood was, and you put it in such like a really calm atmosphere that I really personally enjoy it. And if you ever like to make prints of this photo, I would buy it. Like it's just so beautiful and I really love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, like Elise said, I really like the color palette of it. I feel like the light is really soft and it really like softens up the picture. It makes it look nostalgic, I guess. It's really nice.
Yeah, I know initially you had wanted to make like a physical space, but with the whole COVID situation, you weren't able to do that. But I'm glad to see that the photos kind of express the same emotion you wanted, like the viewer to have.
Thank you, guys.
Well, that brings us to the end of our artist interview, so I will leave E-Ray to do the closing.
Yes. So thank you to the 2020 cohort. Thank you to the mentors. Thank you to Sophia for being our director. And yeah, thank you all for your time, dedication, and amazing work. And also thank you to everyone for seeing our virtual opening. As a reminder, the virtual gallery will be available from today until August 29th. And as for the mural, stay tuned for more information on our upcoming project. And so with that, we wish you all the best, and thank you for coming again. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for coming.